Chickens are something that has been in the urban environment for pretty much the entire existence of urban environments with humans. It's only been since like roughly World War II that people have thought that we should separate urban areas and residential areas, urban areas and rural areas, to the extent that we need to remove livestock from cities. So in Colombia, it's been since 1962 that our ordinance has stated that you have to have a half an acre per livestock, and that includes whether it's a chicken or a cow. It doesn't really make much of a difference. And so it's been about a year now that people in Colombia have started working on the Urban Hen Initiative. I think it started in fall, roughly, of 2008. And it was just a bunch of people getting together at the coffee shops in the Benton Stevens neighborhood, talking about, urban sustainability and urban agriculture. And then it moved into the spring, and that's about when I started to get involved. And I wanted to move it along a little bit faster, and so I started talking to the city council members, especially mine, Paul Sturts, and the mayor especially, about, well, what is it we need to do to get this legislation passed through, or to get people aware of it. And so from there it went to the Board of Health, and the Board of Health was putting a proposal together for all of the animal control ordinances in which chickens would fall under should they come out of the livestock definition. So the Board of Health started talking about chickens in May, when I brought a couple of 5 or 6 people to the Board of Health meeting in May. And from there they talked about it in June, July, August, and then in September they voted on the ordinance that they had, or the proposal that they had put together for the city council. However, they couldn't come to a conclusion on what they wanted to do. So right now we're just waiting to see if the city council will go forward with it, or if the Board of Health actually has to make a recommendation to city council.
My name is Greg Baca, and I'm a proponent of allowing chickens here in Columbia. And I'm a homeowner and also a small business owner. When I got involved in this, one of the things that I came across was that as soon as we started talking to people, there were things that came up that people right away sort of used as excuses on why they thought maybe it wasn't such a good idea. And then as I did a little research, I found out that those same excuses kind of keep coming up over and over in all the cities that have worked on changing their laws to allow a small number of hens in town. And the 4 things that they come up with all the time are that chickens make too much poop, that chickens will be too expensive for the animal control people to add into their thing that they have to deal with, so enforcement, I guess, that chickens would have salmonella issues, and also that chickens would have bird flu issues. So then doing some research into those, we found out that they really are excuses, because none of them are actually accurate. They're just sort of the things that people come up with right off the top of their head.
Well, it's just like having a pet. You learn, how much another animal may depend on you, and how you really have to be responsible and take care of it. And I think that it's not just the taking care of the animal, but it's kind of seeing how the animals and the plants interact. So, just here in my sort of suburban type backyard, it would be a really integrated system with animals that eat pets and then produce their waste, which is good nutrition for the plants, and then the plant leftovers can then be fed to the hens, which then create eggs which we can eat, and then we can compost the hens' manure, compost the leftover eggshells, and it's just as you can see that cycle, how nature doesn't have waste products really. Nature, the waste of one part of nature becomes the feedstock for kind of the next step in the cycle, and it just keeps going around and around. So I think it's a really great illustration of how there's no waste in nature.
Yeah, so the amount of manure they produce is something that you can deal with on the land. You're not going to get large amounts of nitrogen or sulfur runoff because it's going to be absorbed into the land that you have, either onto the just square footage that you're using, into your compost pile, or onto your garden.
The poop thing, chickens, 3 chickens basically makes about as much poop per week as a cat. So if they allow 6 hens, it's very similar to somebody who has 2 cats. I mean, and the nice part is chicken manure can go in the compost, it can go in the garden, it can go in the flower bed, where cat manure should not, because cat manure actually has germs in it, diseases in it. The other one about animal control, reality has shown that all the cities who did allow chickens in town, as they've had a few years under their belt now with it, they're not getting problems. They're not getting anybody complaining. They're not getting, no, I won't say not anybody, but very, very few complaints. And the thing is, chickens, they just don't make noise. So who's to complain about, barking? They don't get loose and bite children, or they don't get loose and chase other people's pets around. They're very very problem-free as far as the animal control people are concerned.
Well, a lot of people are afraid of the noise. Now, if you just listen here, that's the MKT trail right down there and the Forum wetlands, and you can hear there are noises. And earlier today, the starlings were making a lot of noise. You can hear crickets right now. Very often you can hear lawnmowers all over the place. You can hear Forum Boulevard, cars going by on that. So, things make noises, but as long as you don't have roosters, and no one thinks that we should have roosters in Columbia, the noise of hens in a small flock is really not going to be, even really noticeable over the other noises that are just normal in a neighborhood. Like, I just heard the mail truck pull up there, so there's always some noises, and hens are really not, if you've been around small flocks of them, they kind of cluck a little bit, but they're certainly not as noisy as the Canada geese we get out there on the wetlands in the fall.
The problem with most people not understanding chickens is that the idea of urban chickens is not the same as the idea of commercial chickens. And so urban chickens are about having a small flock, which can be anywhere from 2 chickens to, say, 25 chickens, and that'll still be poundage less than, 2 large dogs. And so that small number of chickens isn't going to create a loud noise. As you can see, there are 8 hens around us right now, and you can hear the dog yipping much more than you can hear 8 hens.
Salmonella was the third one, and that's primarily people associate salmonella and eggs, which there is instances out there where there has been salmonella issues involved around egg things, but primarily salmonella is a food handling issue. So it doesn't really have to do that much with chickens or eggs. It's bad food handling. But there's been salmonella outbreaks in pork, cheese, cantaloupe, tomatoes, sprouts, and eggs occasionally. So, I mean, nobody's out there saying that we shouldn't allow people to grow cantaloupes in their front yard because of salmonella. So that's just sort of a mistaken idea.
As people have become more and more aware of what's happening with our food, and that's vegetables, and then of course there are all the awful things about the way animals are treated. I don't really consider myself an animal rights activist, but I think that you have to have some basic decency in your dealing with other creatures. And I also worry a lot, I'm a pediatrician, and I worry a lot about the use of antibiotics in food. I mean, we are really trying to limit the use of antibiotics to the most appropriate uses so that we don't see resistance to antibiotics, we as pediatricians. But we are seeing a lot of resistance. And some people blame it on us pediatricians because kids come in with ear infections and so on and get these antibiotics. But the antibiotics used in humans are just a tiny fraction of the antibiotics used in the United States. The big majority of them actually go to feeding animals, not even to treating sick animals, but to just feeding animals so that they can survive conditions that they normally wouldn't survive because of crowding and disease and being too genetically similar, and lots of other things that would cause them to just die, and they still die, some of them, but they wouldn't be able to survive without being given antibiotics on a daily basis. Well, that's a real problem for us as we look at the emergence of resistant bacterial disease.
And bird flu was the last one. People say, oh, you'll get bird flu and we'll all get sick. But bird flu is actually a problem that comes from the big factory farms. When they stick hundreds of thousands of birds all together, no sunlight, they're all standing, walking around in their own wastes. They don't get out into the grass, they don't get out in the sun. It's like the perfect condition to breed viruses and germs that mutate terribly. What they found is that small flocks, as soon as you only get down to 30 birds or 10 birds or 6 birds, there's not enough of them to cause those mutation problems. So there's no bird flu problems with small flocks. It's only with the huge factory farms. So actually keeping chickens locally does more to prevent bird flu than it does to spread it. So hopefully people will kind of get past those excuses that they throw out when they're first approached with the idea. Those are the excuses they come up with. But they're excuses, they're not really reasons.
Hi there, I'm Adam Saunders. I work with the Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture, which is a nonprofit that does education about urban food production. We're standing here in a demonstration garden that is managed by students from a college class that we teach and other volunteers from the community. We teach those students through that class about gardening and about soil preparation and compost, which we have a pile behind us here. But also do education with elementary schools. So bring the kids out here. We've got a tour later today. And educate them about gardening and about composting and about hens. Hens are a really important part of urban agriculture and sustainable agriculture. They provide you a lot of benefits to your urban farm or to your farm either if you're in the country. They're a very important member of the overall system of sustainable ag.
Oh, here, check out the chickens, sir. What do you think we use these chickens for?
Eggs.
Eggs, that's right.
And chicken manure. Chicken manure.
And chicken manure, that's right.
Is this the food?
No, that's just some... They will eat that though. We'll put that down there. Maybe they'll come out there and eat it. Let's see if I can... Radish in there.
Oh.
They might eat that. See that? Look in the center of that radish. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that pretty?
It is. Can I put one in there?
Yeah, throw that in there.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well, there's only 2 pieces, so we gotta just kind of...
want to taste it. Can I put some in?
Yeah, throw that in there. I don't know if we can...
Now they coming.
Everybody be real still. Let's see if they come out and eat this. Chickens are hungry always, so they'll come out and eat this.
Oh, they eat it. That was just...
And look at their feet. Don't their feet look like big old dinosaur claws?
Yeah.
Big and scaly.
They ain't salad.
So there's a lot of different kinds of chickens out there. We've got 3 different varieties here. We've got a Rhode Island Red. And the black ones are a cross between 2 different kinds, and the big one's a Dominique.
This here is an urban hen in Columbia. They're Buff Orpingtons, both of these 2 here. And they're 25 weeks old, so they've been laying for about 7 weeks, 8 weeks now. And they lay an egg roughly every 25 to 28 hours. So you expect 2 eggs per 3 chickens each day. And that actually varies a little bit. These are dual purpose birds, so they're actually considered a little bit more meat birds than egg birds. And she's getting a little bit feisty here because she wants to get down and get some of that food down there.
Well, they're very soft, and they have personalities, and you can tell their personalities. They're like people in a way, because they have personalities, and they're they're just like people.
So what's this one?
This is called Yellowfoot because it has yellow feet. And we name them by characteristics. Like, Mary's named most of them, but I named one Omelet. And there's Crooked Toe, Omelet, and this is Yellowfoot. And then there's Miss Timid, which is very timid, and she doesn't really like to be near people very much. And then she actually has 2 different chickens. They're red chickens, and they're a lot younger than these guys, so they're kind of scared of them. And as you can see, that one right there, they got a snake, and they follow each other around until they get some of the food that the other one has caught.
So with the Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture, one of our big goals is education, and we will certainly have classes about education and how to raise hens. Explaining the ordinance, how it works, explaining how to set up a compost system that can take the chicken manure and chicken waste from the coop, and all those different tips and tips of the trade about how to be a successful hen raiser. Those are going to be some areas for people, especially first-time chicken raisers, to get those tips and have a resource in the community so people can go to and get help. There's an egg in here they laid this morning. Which is nice. Sometimes there's 4 of them, so I get a 4-egg day maybe once a week, because they kind of all cycle through, because one of them lays every day, the red one. And then I think this black one here with the red neck, the Australorp, I think it lays every day too. And then the Dominic is a little older, so she doesn't lay every day.
So, and they'd be just so fresh and nice. You know, there's a big nutritional difference between the eggs from hens that have been able to eat bugs and, you know, scratch and find stuff on the ground, and then the eggs that come from these battery hens. You know, when they look at the difference, there really are some major nutritional differences. There's more cholesterol and more saturated fats in the battery hen eggs, and then in the hens that are allowed to kind of range more and eat a more natural diet, you see higher levels of beta carotene and vitamin E and vitamin A. And so, you know, it would be just really great to have ready access to those really fresh nutritional eggs for the family.
This big fat egg.
So is there a big taste difference between these eggs and the ones you buy in the store?
Well, we don't buy ones in the store, so I don't know. Like the little white ones, you can definitely tell the difference, like when you put them in a frying pan. Like, mostly the yolk, like the color of the yolk. Like the ones in the store are going to be like a light yellow color, and the yolk is going to be real flimsy and tend to like flatten out as soon as you put it into a pan, where these are like dark orange, and it's going to hold like a nice hump shape when you put it in a pan. So it's a much thicker, like stronger yolk, and they're tastier.
Okay, so I'm just going to crack our eggs in here. They're a little bit smaller, as you can see, but these hens are very small, and the eggs are kind of tough, so sometimes... Look at that. Look how orange that is. That's very unusual. You don't get that from a store egg. Even from a farmer's market egg, you won't get them. That's beautiful. I usually eat about 3 of these. I consider about 3 of these small eggs to be about 2 large store-bought eggs. I think they taste a lot better. I could just be prejudiced because I want urban hens and I want the ability to have clean, nutrient-dense food in my backyard. That's basically just turning my food scraps into this beautiful egg concoction that I've got going on here. And I'll, you know, either whip it up and make some omelets with some onions that I grew and some tomatoes that I have. You can see I got tomatoes here too. And I've got some peppers that are coming ripe finally, and so that'll just make a really great omelet in the backyard.
You know, and this is a fairly typical coop of what it could look like. We've got an indoor-outdoor component and a part that you can hook up to a chicken tractor here, where we can put up here, and then we can graze the hens through the yard. A real simple design. Alright, so this is the chicken tractor, and what happens is there's a door in the coop, and we just back this up to it and open the door, and they just kind of meander in, throw a little corn in there, and they follow the corn, and then you can just pick this up. Dan, if you want to grab the other side, or Adam, you just pick it up and just kind of walk with it low on the ground, and the chickens just follow, like they just kind of herd themselves along, and you just put it wherever you want it. Like right now it's over here because we're bringing a bunch of little kids over later today, and we're going to bring the chickens over here so that they can see the chickens.
This is where my pumpkin vines are. As you can see, they've kind of taken over. And some of those brown leaves there, if you turn them up, there will be squash bugs under there on a dry day. And I would love to catch squash bugs and feed them to hens too. And then at the end of the season, put a little mobile coop or mobile run here and let the hens just get in there and scratch through the grass and scratch through the soil and eat all the remaining squash bugs and their eggs and everything to sort of decontaminate for next year, as well as to kick in their manure and fertilize my garden beds.
Okay, so this is a chicken tractor. It has a coop and a nest inside, and we've got 6 hens, and you can see that there are 5 actual eggs and 2 faux eggs. We keep the faux eggs in there so that they know to come back here and keep laying their eggs. And they won't sit on them because there aren't enough yet, because each day we collect the 5 real eggs or 3 real eggs, or sometimes there's even 2, and eat them, pretty much. And I don't know if you can see this, but this egg here is actually round. This one here, it's not all oblong the way the other ones are. And they're each different colors, pretty much. I always get that one, almost every day. Anyway, I love these.
So I live here sort of, well, it's right in the city, but we've got the MKT trail corridor down there and the wetlands, and so we have every potential hen predator you can imagine, you know, neighborhood dogs, coyotes, raccoons, possums, hawks and owls, you know, all those things are found here commonly. So I think, you know, when people worry about, you know, people not securing their hens, I mean, basically, if you don't build a secure enclosure that's going to keep them in, you're not going to have hens for very long. So I'm pretty confident that any urban hens are going to be well contained.
All the way over here, all the way down.
And once people have been educated on what it is that urban hens are about and how they're going to be housed and how they're going to live their lives, then people tend to come around and realize that it's not going to be a problem. And so in that sense, it's just an education issue, which I think a lot of things are that way in people trying to figure out, well, what is it we want to do to change our city and to change our way of lives? And it's more about understanding the processes and the ideas behind what we want to do than it is about the actual processes. Like, no, we don't want chickens because they're going to be loud and smelly, and they're going to be because that's our interpretation of them, because every time we've seen chickens out there, we've seen them in the hundreds or even in the 100,000s on these big commercial chicken farms. And so once you have just a few of them, they can be beneficial to your area because you're not overwhelming the square footage that you have.
Yeah, the urban chicken laws it's really standard policy around the country. It's not abnormal. There's many comparable cities, even in the state of Missouri, that have urban chicken laws. Springfield has, you can have 12 chickens there, like, for example. And it's like that all over the country. So to have very simple, well-regulated laws here in Columbia is not out of the norm.
And yeah, I think that that if the city council does approve allowing a few hens per household, that they're going to be happy with the results. I don't think there's going to be problems. There will be, you know, there'll be a little learning curve. There's a lot of groups that are ready to do some chicken training classes for people, so they know what they're getting into and how to raise them and how to feed them and how to care for them.
I think it's a good idea for the city of Columbia to pass a chicken ordinance so that people can see where eggs come from, and the more Like if I know where my egg comes from, it's a good idea because it doesn't come from the store from long ways away. It came from my backyard. I know what the chicken ate. I know where it lives. I know what conditions it lives in. I think the more chickens we have in the city, the merrier.
I think the city of Columbia should have urban hens because it's really nice knowing that you have a food source in your backyard. Chickens are a nice pet. All the rumors about them being bad are not true, I can contest. And as Bobby said, it's good to have chickens because you know where your food came from, you know what you're feeding them, you know how they live. And they're just a lot of fun to have. It diversifies your backyard. Good for the kids too.
But I think, you know, if Columbia doesn't do this, we're actually way behind a lot of other communities. I mean, Springfield, St. Louis, and Kansas City all allow backyard flocks, and some of them pretty large numbers. So, you know, here we are, supposedly progressive city, and yet we don't allow hens, and all those other places do.
Hens are real simple to raise. You just need to give them some food, place to sleep, clean environment, and then you harvest eggs and take care of them. It's really not that complicated. They make just a little bit of noise when they lay an egg, but other than that, they're silent. It's great. Real simple. And eggs are a huge benefit because eggs are great food. I eat eggs every morning, and in order to be able to produce my own eggs would be fantastic and would save me money for sure.